Alright, today I'm gonna start something that I wanted to do for a while, and that's a complete series on what Invoker is, what he's supposed to do, how do you play him, what items do you buy, how do you lane against him, what different styles you can go for, and everything. And today right now we just want to go on the basics. We're gonna look through every spell, get a quick couple of thoughts, and just think about what they do and how we can use them, and keep it very, very basic. So Invoker has three different orbs, and you can activate, with each level you can activate an orb, and those orbs are like spinning around, and then you can combine those orbs to get different spells that you are able to cast. Let me give a level up here. Once you have all of these three orbs, you can use different spells, and there's actually a really great feature there to help you to see what kind of spell exactly you want to use. And your goal, if you want to learn Invoker, is to do the basic step, get into games and start to learn those combos. There's actually even a game, like a web browser game, that can teach you all of those spells, and you can just learn the combos there. I can give you a link in the description. Alright, let's go over the spells real quick. Cold Snap, it's a great tool that actually, I'm just going to simplify it immensely, but you basically have a short stun that interrupts like channeling abilities, and it has a duration on the effect. Let me actually show it on this here. So the Cold Snap ability is a cast, and it interrupts channeling abilities. So if you, for example, try to TP somewhere and I cast Cold Snap, then we have an interruption. And every time the person gets hit, there's another small, like mini bash. We can imagine it like this. And the more points in quasi level, the higher the stun duration goes, and the cooldown of the mini snaps, once you get hit, they decrease as well. And also the freezing damage goes up. And then we have Invis. That's pretty simple. You get Invis. One thing you can think about there is that you slow enemies, and at the beginning, like if you don't have many points in Vex, you're gonna be really, really slow yourself, so this is kind of tricky. Ice Wall is a great ability. You can use it really easily to initiate and to set up things and to block pathways on the enemy. Let's go through it. Invis is this one here. It slows the enemy, but it slows you as well. Let's get max level. If you look at the X movement speed, it's super, super slow. And if my Quas isn't really high, my Vex isn't really high, then it's going to slow me as well. Ice Wall is an ability that goes into a vector, which is kind of tricky to use. Like you have to get used to the direction that it's going. Like it's always going to be in this position towards you facing. And then you want to, like, if you want to make setups, for example with Cold Snap and Tornado, the first combo, you want to position yourself like this. And let's get another tango so you can show things. You can use it like this, and then position yourself here, and then use the Ice Wall. So it should look something like this, and then you have the Ice Wall combo, and then you can follow up with other spells. Alright, next spell that we just used was EMP. EMP, one thing people don't know about EMP is that the burned mana, you actually get some percentage of that mana back. You get mana back, 50% is actually, that you take from enemies. So if you're low in enemy fights and you manage to get out 125 mana, use it to restore your mana. If you hit 3 people with it, you're basically full mana again. Great tool, great tool. Also great initiation tool, like if you just want to poke enemies, because it has low cooldown and yet it's super useful, especially against heroes like Aches. They have a low mana pool in general, and if you take their mana away, then they become useless, even though you wouldn't think them as magic dependent heroes. Like BKB now has mana cost, and Call has mana cost, and if he uses like his Culling Blade, for example, those things are pretty heavily on mana because X doesn't buy any mana items, and if you can use EMP to your advantage, that's really a great thing. For example, if you go against Bristleback or heroes like that as well, you can just use this and delay their ability to fight and to sustain fights, which is actually their strength. Tornado is a great thing. We have to keep in mind Tornado dispels and the duration of Tornado. Actually, look by myself. The live time of Tornado goes up by Quas. So usually the typical build would be 404. We're going to talk about that later. And it's pretty easy actually to memorize by feeling what the Tornado live time is, so you can combi it with Sunstrike or other spells. Alacrity is a great spell. It allows you to get more attack damage and more attack speed. Always use Alacrity on catapults. I think that's the most important thing people get wrong. If you push objectives, Invoker is never the one who wants to push objectives, so you just want to press Alacrity on either your heroes that can push objectives or catapults. Catapults have extra damage on towers, so it's really, really nice if you go for this. Deafening Blast is great. The one really, really nice thing about Deafening Blast is based on Vex level, it disarms enemies. For example, if you play against Huskar or other people and they try to attack you and they have a lot of damage, you can disarm them. And disarm is actually really, really great against certain heroes. Let's see, what do we have next? Sunstrike. Sunstrike, pretty straightforward. You have a global spell wherever you want to set it on a map, and after 1.75 seconds, is it that? Yeah, 1.7 seconds. Okay, fair enough. The Sunstrike gets out the damage. One thing to keep in mind with Sunstrike is that it shares the damage. So if, for example, if you have a Legion commander dueling this X, make sure that you don't hit the creeps on it. And many times I like to keep it on quick cast because I'm not really a fan of like selecting it like this. But whenever I have opportunities, for example in a chrono, and we want to try to kill one specific target, I always manually equip it so I can really circle it around and barely hit the enemy without hitting many creeps as well, so the damage doesn't get split. I think that's the only really important thing about that. Forge Spirits. Forge Spirits are completely underestimated. One thing you can do with Forge Spirit is you wanna always deny the runes if possible with the Forge Spirits. It's a really great tool, and Forge Spirits have minus armor. If you look at this Axe, for example, right now, he gets just hit, and look at the minus armor. It's just stacking up, stacking up, stacking up. And this is actually a crazy amount. It's like once you set it on people, you just set it on a tank, leave it be. It's one button you press and then you forget it, and then their minus armor is just crazy, and you can actually kill people with this. Pretty reliable. Last spell is Meteor. Meteor, very simple as well. You just, you cast a Meteor. One thing you have to keep in mind is, let's get rid of those. One thing to keep in mind is that the max damage that you can get from a Meteor, let's get a dummy target. Max damage is actually, if you don't set it exactly on the target. I hit it, I also hit it, my bad. Don't set it exactly on the target, because then the maximum damage is not reached. The maximum damage is reached if you keep a little bit of a distance. Like if you keep this distance, then it lands first and the land initiation hit has damage, and then it keeps rolling, and of course the more time they spend in the fire of the Deafening Blast that's coming up, the more damage you will have. So make sure if you set your Tornado combo, that like the distance you hit it is just on the right term. It's just before them and then cuts. Ideally, it cuts off their path. Like, if you have an enemy, for example, walking here. Let's set this up real quick. We can imagine that there are like some obstacles here, maybe. Of course, you wanna set your tornado like this, and then this guy tries to walk out and whatever. Yeah. So just be mindful of the position there. And then another useful thing to know, if you want to go for the Meteor combo, like Cold Snap and Tornado and Meteor, that's 550 mana. So in the laning stage, you want to make sure, if you want to go for it in the early levels, you want to make sure that you have 550 mana, and you have to keep in mind that before you're like level 6 or level 7 and you don't have the stat items, your maximum mana doesn't actually involve the capacity of 550. So I see many people, like great Invoker players, who really want to do the Meteor combo early because they prep the kill and they trade like in their favor and it looks really close, like both people trade and both get low HP, but Invoker didn't use a single spell, and then they have one Mango, for example, and then they cast the spells, cast Mango, and then use Meteor Blast. So that's a great thing you can do there. Another thing, you have burn damage per second. And this burn damage actually stacks really, really well with your Cold Snap. Like if you manage to burn them and you Cold Snap, their ability to move gets really, really restricted, and that's a great tool. Like if you want to catch people, sometimes even a really, really weak Meteor is better to close the gap because you have the Cold Snap combination and the consistent stun than, for example, I don't know, trying to get an ice wall if the position, like if he's running away anyways and the position is difficult to get with an ice wall and like the angle is difficult to cut, you can use the Meteor even if you cast Vex Invoker and you have only 1 point in Exort, not for the damage but for the Cold Snap triggering effect. Did I mention Tornado Dispels? If the enemy has a haste, you always want to go for the Dispel. That's amazing. That's just such a great tool. Like even DDs, you casually throw out a Tornado and their power potential is gone. Alright, let's go through some basic combos. I'm not a big fan of like grinding combos for hours and trying to get them like on Sumia level perfect with Hex and Refresher. Like, those have their place and their righteous place to be, but it's not the main goal of Invoker. Like, we have to get away from the idea that Invoker is a hero that uses 10 spells to nuke one random dude on the map and is useless otherwise. Invoker for me is a hero that builds like a carry, but he plays more like a support, which is kind of weird because you're farming a lot, but the way you team fight is more of utility. Like, you try to interrupt enemies, you try to create chaos, you try to disjoint projectiles, and you try to do different things that makes it difficult for the enemy to team fight. And your main goal is not to be the one who puts out the most damage. Like, if you want to build Morphling Shotgun or something, sure, you go. But Invoker, that's not actually what the hero does. He can do it if you have the level advantage. That's why most people go into Midas and stuff like that. But it's not the main goal. So for me, a great tool, especially if I have an offlaner, like I know, okay, the enemy heroes are dead and I just want to get this offlaner and maybe my team can connect to me. I want to do this. I want to use... Let's get a free spells off and reset that. I want to use the Tornado Ice Wall combo, and then I follow it up with X, and then maybe we can get some spells in. But the main goal is never to completely nuke out on things. Usually people have escape abilities, and what you can do then, even if they have BKB, you can just force BKB with spells that look fancy. Like, imagine you're playing Aches and you're like farming somewhere easily, and then Invoker comes blinking on you and he's like casting spells and whatever, and of course you press BKB because you think he used all his fancy spells, but actually I still have Meteor, I still have Sunstrike, I still have Force Spirit, I'm gonna have Cold Snap soon again because the cooldown is really low, and then I didn't lose any capacity on my fight, and you use the major spell that I'm just gonna kite. So if the enemy hero has BKBs available, you can set up to bait, or you can set up to kite it accordingly, because your spell and attack damage is not gonna go through. So I can really recommend, as the easiest initiation tool, even without Ice Wall, would just be this combo, Cold Snap, Tornado into Vex. This forces them to react. If they lose mana, it's a great opening, and then you can actually fight afterwards. If you want to go for Meteor combos, and you have a tankier target that you can go on yourself, you can set it up with Ice Wall again, because you have the time if the level is high, and then you can maybe Alacrity and even Force Spirit, and then cast them back if they try to approach you. That's another great thing about... let me see if I can manage to show this. That's another great thing. If people try to challenge you, and you can keep your Deafening Blast, you can cast it like this, and then this guy is going to try to run at you. And once he runs out of the Ice Wall, like once he manages to get out of it, you can actually push him back with the Deafening Blast, and so he's longer unable to move. And then once he closes the gap, you can just escape and like try to redirect the fight, not be the first target that's being initiated on. Another combo. What else do we have? Like, there's so many options to do combos with him. Another really basic one for laning stage is just Cold Snap into Tornado, and then what's it called, Meteor. So you go like this. It's a cooldown, lol. But actually the difficulty there in the laning stage is that the timing of the Tornado is really short. Let me reset Invoker real quick, and let me just get like 6 levels. Many people do it on level 6. And then you're probably gonna level something like that, and then 1 point here, and then 1 point there. And if you try to use the Meteor combo there at the early levels, the lift time of your Tornado is really short. So you gotta be quick with your fingers that it instantly connects as soon as you can. Yeah, I think that's like one useful thing you can practice, definitely. And then try to practice the Ice Walls. Ice Wall is really underrated, but I think it opens up team fights a lot for you, and it gives you space. Alright, I think this is how the spells work. Another thing I get asked from people who don't play Invoker, and usually don't even want to start to play Invoker, is does the order of the spells matter? Like, can you press QQE to get Ice Wall? Or can you press EEQ as well? And oops, that's the wrong one. Yeah, you don't have to do the right order, but the number has to be the same. So 2 Quas, 1 Exort, but for example you can bring 1 Exort to the side here. I can't even do it from muscle memory, that's crazy. You can use it like this, and it's still the Ice Wall, even though the combination is different. Another thing, if you level up, that's important. For example, if you get level 8 is usually the timing, or 4 points in Quas and 4 points in Exort create 2 Forge Spirits, and this is a huge power spike for you. That's why most people build Exort Invoker with 4 points, 4, 0, 4, and then get the Forge Spirit instantly. Let's just get to this point. Let's see how it looks. It looks like something like this. And then let's get the last point in. So if I press Forge Spirits now, it's going to be 1 Forge Spirit. And if you level up, you don't need to recast your spell. That's what I thought at the beginning. That like, oh, okay, I just leveled up. I'm going to have to like press Forge Spirit again, but you don't have to do that. It's just going to be double Forge Spirit, which is actually, it kind of makes sense. But I don't know why I thought that. But if you're one guy who does that, you don't have to. And another thing, what I showed just now, for the combo, for the Tornado combo, which is actually my fault, man, is that I learned it like this. Like, I learned Cold Snap Tornado like this, and what happens then is you initiate with Cold Snap, and then you get into Meteor. But the problem with this is, if you lose vision, and you have it like this, and then you try to cast the Cold Snap, then you're not going to see him. But you're like, I know he's there, but I just lost vision, so I could place a Tornado, and then I have the Meteor. The problem then is that your Cold Snap has cycled out, and you can't use it anymore because of the cooldown. And then he's going to get away because he's not stunned. Like, he's just going to walk out of the Tornado, he doesn't take any damage. So I think the proper way would be, instead of playing it like this, it would be actually to play like this. I had like, I don't know, 5 experiences where it actually mattered, so this is not a lot, but like if you start learning it anyways, start positioning your Tornado combo like this, where you have the opportunity to start, if he gets out of vision, to start with Tornado, and then follow up Meteor, and then get the Cold Snap in as well. That would be a great thing. Since we're talking about it, nice that I don't forget it. This Meteor, normal vision is the cheat code, I think, yeah. This Meteor actually gives vision. So if you see the enemy there, yeah, that's perfect. And what you can do with the shard especially, the shard just creates 3 meteors, is you can scan things in the jungle really well. For example, if you try to find a Hoodwink, which, those Hoodwinks, man. If you try to find Hoodwinks or Void Spirit that's jumped in the backlines, you can just use this very broadly and then scan the whole area of trees, which is a great tool. Or just use Sunstrike, like if you... Many times people use Sunstrike just for vision, like not even to get the kill, but they, if somebody's running away, they just use Sunstrike into Cold Snap or something to slow them down. Or Sunstrike into Tornado to set things up. Alright, I think that's pretty much it. Another thing, we can look over the levels, of course, real quick. I think in this patch, the 6 seconds Tornado cooldown is better. There might be situational things, where EMP is better. For example, if you know that the hero has a really, really small mana pool, for example like Aix, Centaur, or I don't know, typical offlaners, and you know that they can be useless if you take their mana, but then again it's kind of risky, and Tornado is the spell you're gonna use most of the time. Forge Spirit, attack speed, I've seen a couple people do it, but I think Cold Snap is way, way better. The ability to constantly use Cold Snap, interrupt people, it's actually really, really strong if they don't have dispels. I would still choose it, even if like, if the first one gets dispelled, you kite around it a little bit, you go into the next one. Cold Snap is definitely the nice one. In this patch, we got the option of Chaos Meteor damage, and I think I would prefer Chaos Meteor damage. It's so much damage actually, like people just die, especially if you combo it with Chaos Meteor or you have any sort of stun setup. It really, really scales well. And I think one of the problems Invoker has is that at some point he's not going to scale anymore. I mean, he's going to scale extremely well because he's Invoker and he has 10 spells. But at some point you can't build really items that enable you to put out more magical damage, and this talent, it just does it for you. On the other hand, if the game is a Storm, but you know, okay, they have like 1000 BKBs, or you feel like you never got the opening to get a nice Meteor, which would be a weird scenario, but maybe there's a scenario for maybe pushing especially, then Alacrity could still be the play. Like, for example, if you would be in a game and you know you're the only source of physical damage and your team is going to fight and you build something crazy like a Sultkaraz and Desolator and you just split push, you can go for that. But on this case, probably you're still on like the high levels and you can get both talents anyways. For 25, I always think Quas Vex Exort passive effects are so much stronger. Like, look at the regeneration I have right now. That's let's get boots, TP boots to be realistic for the movement speed later on as well. But what it does, it just triples the effect that you have. So I have 31 HP regen right now, and then you bump it up to 73. This is a half Heart of Tarrasque or something. It's just crazy. And then the damage amount as well. It's just ridiculous the amount of damage you can get out. And the most important thing I think for this is the movement speed. If you press triple Vex, you get 550 movement speed. So you're constantly moving at haste. I'm always looking forward to this talent because it's so much fun just running around. Which reminds me, actually, I forgot something. Of course, if you're in your Ghost Walk, then the movement speed that's scaling, is the self speed that is scaling, actually it works with the orbs that you have as well. So if you try to run away as fast as you can, you want to try to press this spell, and then you want to try to go on 3 Vex, so you have the movement speed extra, and you can be faster with movement speed. Let's try it like this. If I have only Quas, my movement speed gets to 431, and of course, even without the 3x talent, as soon as I have triple Quas, triple Vex, my movement speed goes up to 550. So even before you have the talent, you can get 550 movement speed by having 3 points in Vex, and then using Ghost Walk, which is really, really helpful. For team fights, I would generally stay in Exort, I think. You're gonna move forward anyways, but really, really soon you're gonna realize that by yourself you're gonna use Vex if you have to run a lot. You're gonna use Quas on laning stage if you heal, and then toggle between Quas. Let's get some creeps. And you're gonna realize that you're gonna use the Forest Spirits, and that you toggle between Quas and Exort every time you last hitting. So you're prepping something, and then you go back to Quas, and then you get the next CS, and you go to Exort, and then you go back to Quas, and forth and back. So what's really happening with Invoker... let's get some vision here, I don't see anything. What's really happening with Invoker is that basically you cast 7 spells every time you cast a single spell. For example, let's try to use... get Sunstrike in. So what we do is we press 1, 2, 3, and then we press ulti, that's 5, that's 4 already, and then we press the Sunstrike, and then that's 5, and then we go back to the different parts that we want to use. For example, triple Quas. Did I miscount? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 casting, and then 6, 7, even 8 probably. Like if you go all the way back to your Quas, you cast a lot of buttons, and that's a satisfying thing. Get a mechanical keyboard, enjoy the ASMR, and play some Invoker. It's a great hero. Alright, did I miss anything? I think items is the next video that we're gonna go through. I'm gonna go through my guide, and we're gonna talk about this. Let me quickly go over the spells. Of course, I'm gonna miss some things, but hopefully they come up over the time, and we will get a nice insight in what I understand to be mainly Exort Invoker, to be honest. My Quas Vex is questionable. Alright, hope you enjoyed it.